Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode. So this is kind of technically a part 2 where we're looking at EKOply and its suitability as a replacement for your traditional marine ply. So I'm back in Wales in the kitchen/workshop, and so just going to recap quickly from the last episode for those who didn't see it. We basically did a bit of sort of very basic testing where I've submerged some of this material in some saltwater baths and what I'm describing as the bilge water from hell, which both of these now are looking pretty nasty. After the last episode, I left them in here for, I think it's been about 6 to 8 weeks now. So they've all been sat in there. So we're going to have a quick look at that. I've got some really hot soapy water here to give it a clean up as well. And we're going to see how it fared after that sort of extended period. And then we're actually going to crack on with making some stuff for the boat. So this time I have gloves on it because the bilge water from hell, I've got to say, was so nasty that the last time I put my hands anywhere near this, it took me about 3 days to get the smell of oil and diesel off my hands, just like washing and scrubbing them repeatedly. So hence gloves this time. I've got a piece of sort of reference which hasn't been in anything to compare against, and I say we're going to take these out and give them a good wash off so we can actually have a look at them once they're sort of clean and dry. So we're going to start off with the just saltwater bath, which has now got a lot of green algae and horribleness in it, and although there is a bit of sort of slime that's built up on it, it is still solid as a rock. No squishiness. I don't think there's any difference in the weight, which would indicate sort of water ingress into it. But we're going to give it a clean off and a dry up anyway, so we can have a proper compare. So I'm going to dump that one in the soapy water. And then now we've got the bilge water from hell. So in here, there's also a piece of marine ply, which has survived better than I expected it to. But one thing I will note is it doesn't float anymore, whereas it did when it first went in. So that's probably a bad sign. So let's pull out the EKOply to start with. It's got a bit of, again, emulsification from the oil and stuff on it, but again, still solid, still got that sort of hollow sort of noise, doesn't sound squishy, no strength reduction, and again, I don't really want to touch this one with my oily hands, but can't really tell much difference in the weight. I know it's not particularly scientific. It might be a little bit sort of thing, but we'll see whether it actually dries out. I mean, bear in mind, this is a kind of worst case scenario, and then somewhere in here, I think there is the plywood. Now that is certainly, as I say, I know it's heavier because of the fact that it's sinking rather than thing. It is, as I say, still pretty solid, but I've got to be honest, after this extended thing, it wasn't so bad after a week or so, but it is starting to feel a little bit softer. I mean, I'm not trying to downgrade it. It's actually done, say, better than I expected. I thought this would be mush by now, but I'm starting to get the sense that it is... it's starting to go, and, and a couple of months submerged in this, it's done pretty well, like I say, but I think, it is on the downslope, and I have a feel that, so I'm going to give it a clean up as well, so we can compare that. So let me give it a good scrub, and we'll see where we go. Okay, so I got all those cleaned up, and got to be honest, they are, to the point that I don't even know which one of these was in the oil. I know this is the sample that I didn't submerge because it's got the label on it, but, there is zero determinable difference between any of these. They could be slightly more heavy, if I'm honest. Possible some water has managed to sort of seek in amongst these, but I imagine it will dry out pretty well. This is certainly way more heavier than it was. Unfortunately, I don't have a piece to compare this to, but I can literally kind of almost feel the water in here and the weight of it. Now, obviously, this would dry out as well, but I feel like the damage would have been done once this dries out, and it's never going to get back to its sort of former glory, shall we say, whereas this stuff, it's good. So, enough of that. Let's move outside and we'll actually get to building some stuff. Right, so I am outside in our jungle slash garden, and if it ever stops raining for more than a couple of hours in Wales, I might actually cut the lawn, but no point right now. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the work that we're going to be doing today. So this morning I headed off down to our local hardware store, which actually stocks EKOply, which is pretty good because it's pretty rare to find this stuff. And I picked myself up a couple of sheets. I've got a 19mm sheet and a 12mm sheet, which is the two sizes it comes in. And what we're going to be working on first, I know I said originally the plan was to use this for the floorboards, which I'm still planning on doing, but we're not going to be working on that first. What we're actually going to be looking at is the benches and the hatch or locker covers for the cockpit, which I removed when I was last up at the boat. So what we have here, this is the hatch covers, and I obviously have to remove the actual lids from them. And as you can see, the plywood on this is all rotten and so it definitely isn't going to be repairable. These are the benches. They sort of hinge down and over the top of the hatch covers on both sides, although one side doesn't have hatches, to be fair. So what the plan is the 12mm is going to be used for this, because this is, I think, slightly thinner than that, but it should work. And then this is going to be used with the 19mm. I'm going to mark out and cut the benches and the hatch covers in the EKOply, and we'll go from there. So I'm over at the yard right now, and I've made quite a lot of progress with the benches. They're all cut out, mostly shaped. I've got all the reinforcing battens done. All I need to do is now glue on and screw on the reinforcing battens and do the edging just to make it look a bit nice and tidier, and then fit some nice grey fake teak vinyl onto it so it'll actually you know, be a bit comfier and nice to sit on. However, I've got these are the hinges that came off them, because the benches actually hinge up to let you get into the well, both the hatches and then just on the other side for whatever reason. And I am a little bit concerned about the EKOply in that whilst I think it's a really great material and you can certainly screw into it, I'm a bit worried that because it's quite soft, that having the screws in these hinges will probably be an issue, because I think it'll pull out because it's quite soft. I think it'll be fine in anywhere that's not under any particular strain or load, but obviously we keep sitting on them, standing on them, lifting them up, and I think over time it's going to weaken and it's going to end up pulling those screws out. And if I just grab the previous screws that was in the wood, they were quite small. Don't know how well you'll even be able to see that, and I just don't think that's going to hold particularly well. So I'm going to swap them out for some bolts. So rather than being screwed into it, it's going to be bolted through it. But I am also, although these are fairly substantial, they got quite a lot of sort of purchase into the material, I am slightly concerned that what might happen is it'll end up like ripping out essentially at some point. So to counteract that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some stainless steel reinforcing plates to go on the underside. That way the bolts will go through that and it'll just spread the load out a bit. So I'm going to cut the sheet up into some squares and hopefully drill some holes so that, yeah, so basically they'll go through. Sandwich I'll be reading the EKOply. So I'm going to see if I can do this on a chop saw. If not, I've got a lot of angle grinding to do. So anyway, let's crack on. So that went reasonably well. Got it all drilled through and ready to go. I couldn't get the pillar drill to kind of fit with that kind of weird vise that I've got. So it's a bit subject to a little bit of my sort of cockeyed drilling, but yeah, it's close enough that I can make it work. And obviously the sandwich between the hinge and the piece of metal will be the EKOply for the benches. And yeah, so yeah, it's gone all right. Okay, so I got all of the edge finishing done now. It's going to need probably a little bit of tidying up, but it's not come out too badly, to be honest. But the next job is the one that I've been sort of looking forward to and dreading. Essentially, I have to put it all together now. So what we've got to do is these supports are going to have to get fixed to the bottoms of these, but they've got to go in the right places to make sure they don't interfere with anything on the deck. Then I have a bag full of hinges and the steel plates, which all have to be mounted, and this is going to be the moment when I check whether or not the height of these matches with the drill holes on the boat, or whether I'm going to be drilling new ones. I've got myself a new bag of somewhere screws, which will be for screwing these to that. I've also got some specialist glue which is supposed to work on it, and yeah, what else have I got in my little box of tricks? I've got all the stoppers which have to go on the bottom of these as well to make them at the right height. So yeah, quite a bit of sort of jigging to be done. So just as the rain starts, we'll skip to the time lapse and we'll see how it goes.
How's it doing? Fancy!
So finally got all the finishing and edging done. It's not too bad, to be fair. I could have probably done a slightly better job, but I've kind of given up. It's good enough. All these are going to be underneath, and you're not going to see them very often, so I'm quite happy with that. Will be enough for that. So next job is I've got some of this Signfix, which is kind of like a specialist plastic glue, and I've got to stick all these, screw them up, put them all together and finish it off. So we are nearing the home stretch of getting this job done, which is good because it's been quite a complicated and sort of ordeal, but we're getting there. Okay, final leg now for the benches, and that's to put a covering on that's going to be a little bit more scratch resistant than the EKOply, B, a little bit more comfortable than the EKOply, and C, as we're finding out today, it's quite a sunny day, isn't going to get baking hot and burn our bums when we sit on it. So what I've got is some fairly cheap fake teak vinyl in grey. So what I've got to do now is get all the balls lined up on it, get it cut out, and yeah, see if we can't see what it's going to look like as an end result. So after what feels like about 1,000,000 steps, the benches are finally done. They're covered. They're not screwed in, but I've got some more jobs to do in the lockers, so I don't want to screw them down yet. But yeah, I think they've come out really nicely. You know, they're nice soft feel to them as well, so it'll be nice and comfy. And ultimately, though, this video was more about the what's it like to work with the EKOply. So, you know, having done my sort of first project with it, I've got to say it's pretty good. obviously I'm comparing it to sort of plywood and wood. I would say it's a little bit easier to work with in terms of sort of the cutting and shaping side of things, drilling and pretty easy in it as well. The edging is a bit of a faff. I've not done the best job, but that's to say my sort of cack-handedness more than the materials, but I think it's come out well enough. I could paint this if I wanted to, just to give it a nicer finish, but I'm kind of happy with where it's at. But yeah, it does take quite a long time and it's a lot of work to do the edging. But that being said, I haven't had to paint it or prime it or any of that kind of stuff. And theoretically, unlike sort of wood and sort of, or particularly plywood, you know, this stuff will never rot. It'll never get damp. It'll never swell. So in theory, other than these surfaces, which are, it looks nice, but it's a fairly cheap version of it. So this might not fare brilliantly, but we'll have to just see how that goes over the next year or so. But yeah, other than the surface, I should never really have to touch these again. And they should probably, well, if I were to believe what plastic waste does, this should be around probably longer than the boat is. So yeah, so I'm pretty happy with how it's come out. So yeah, keen to know what you think. I think, you know, it looks nice, but yeah, keen to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. But I'm going to leave it there. So thanks so much for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll subscribe and like and check back for the next one.